Bhuvan, thank you so much for being a part of this conversation. You know what? I finished watching Farzi and I really wanted to talk to you, and that's why I called you, and you thankfully readily agreed. But when I was going through your Instagram, because we are living in the social media generation, Bhuvan, one thing that stands out is the way you choose to call yourself Talentino. Bhai, a volcano of talent. Of course, it's actually doing justice from what we have seen. How does it feel?
It feels amazing, Priya. It's overwhelming. So when I first, signed Farzi and I read the script, and of course it was backed by the Rajan DK. So I always keep this, thing in my head. Like I always say this, that I always knew that this rocket is going to fly, but I never knew this is going to fly so high.
Hmm. But I was also told that you did not want to play another friend's part. So initially you were reluctant. What made you say yes?
uh, Rajan DK in the first place,
Hmm, hmm,
and it's also because playing a part in a show, which is pardon me, but called a friend's part, is not a problem. But it's a huge issue how people depict it
hmm, hmm,
usually.
hmm,
People have this cliched way of presenting friends, which I've done previously in my films and never really, I've always felt underutilized on
hmm,
set. I felt that there's more to me that can happen, and nobody's really optimizing on it.
hmm,
So I always felt that I'm there on the set, but I'm still probably not given what I'm capable of. I'm not like I'm probably given my 30%, but I'm capable of giving like 100.
hmm,
So that's something it has always stayed with me. And about 5 years back, and I made this conscious decision that I'm not going to play the parts that kind of don't represent me or don't give me enough
hmm,
meat to dig into.
hmm,
So yeah, when this happened, Farzi happened, I was initially reluctant on an audition level only because it felt like it's probably not something I would want to do or I'd done in the past. But then later
hmm,
on, I was explained the gravity of the part. Then I obviously had my meeting with Raj sir and DK
hmm,
sir, and they told me that in those words that it's almost the parallel lead of the show. So
right.
do not think of it as a friend's part. It's way more than that.
Hmm,
And they said, we promise we won't, show you in a certain way like what you probably done in your previous films or web series or whatever. And it's a very important role, and we've been on the hunt for this role for about 5 6 months, and we haven't found anybody.
hmm,
And had it been like just like a regular cliched friends part, we wouldn't wait this long.
hmm.
So that sort of gave me that assurance that yeah, they're going to do justice to it, and they did actually.
Absolutely. And you know, that's an understatement, I must add, Bhuvan. But right now, what are people calling you? Bhuvan or Feroz?
Feroz. Everywhere I go, Feroz. Yesterday also I was out, couple of paps were there. Everybody is calling me Feroz bhai. Whenever I find time to, go outside because I have a family and I need to dedicate time to them as well. People just randomly, spot me on the streets and they stop and obviously ask for pictures and selfies, and everybody is
Hmm.
calling me Feroz now. I feel a couple of female audiences have sort of, looked into me deeper, and probably, pardon my audacity, have stalked me on Instagram, and they know my real name. So they come up and they call me Bhuvan, and which I don't know if it's a blessing or a curse.
Okay. Now, since you mentioned your time in the industry, it's almost been a decade for you, Bhuvan. It's only now with Farzi that you've been called the breakout star. Do you call this validation? Better late than never. How do you actually see this, and how do you look back at that decade now?
See, it's always like that. Remember, Griya, you've also passed out from school. You've also done your 10th, 12th, and all of that. Whenever you're in 10th, it seems the hardest thing to do because there are board exams and everything. So when you move on, like when you pass and you graduate, sorry, progress to 11th, you feel that 10th was easy. Now 12th is difficult.
Yeah.
So that's like a human condition. With whatever situation we are in at the moment, we always find that situation to be challenging and the most hard.
Hmm.
But as you surpass that and you move ahead, then you feel that यार वो तो easy था ना, it's not that difficult. 10th इतना मुश्किल नहीं था, 12th मुश्किल है.
Hmm.
12th हो गया तो फिर it feels like college में admission मुश्किल है. College में admission हो गया तो लगता है post graduation मुश्किल है. So whatever you kind of move on, and which is why my Instagram also says life is a lesson, you learn it when you're through.
Oh yeah.
So I feel that it's a lifelong learning and it's a process, and
Hmm.
I've been somebody who's never been in a rush
Hmm.
to be somewhere because I've never really marked a destination for myself कि यहाँ पहुंच जाना है या फिर ये कुछ कर जाना है. So calling me a breakout, it's very kind of people, but I don't see it like that because I have always been honest to my craft, and then that's what I aspire to do in my forthcoming projects as well. So I'm a guy who enjoys acting, who gets up, and the day he has to go to a set, that's probably the best day of his life,
Hmm.
which thankfully now is a lot more than before. And yeah, so I feel very happy being on the set, and that's my happy place. I go, I do my job, I love it, and अब उसको breakout बुलाओ अच्छी बात है, नहीं बुलाओ तो भी कोई बात नहीं है. Just whatever form you want to give love in, just keep giving love. That's all I say.
Wait, tell me something. You are a Delhi boy. Then you went and graduated from FTII. So the journey was just in the right direction. So what was it like, Delhi? Have you delved into the theatre circle here in the national capital and then moving to Bombay? What was it like? I mean, if you have to briefly just sum up, I know it's too much to actually sum up in 10 or 15 minutes, but if you have to just talk about the high points and the low points, what was it like?
So I always wanted to be an actor. Like since the day I think I first saw a movie, I felt like this is what I want to do.
Hmm.
Because that experience in itself, stayed with me for days and days after I saw my first film. And my first film, ironically, was called Bombay.
Ah.
So I think it was pretty cosmic for me to come to Bombay and eventually become an actor. So the first film that I ever saw in a theater was Bombay, which had Arvind Swamiji and Manisha Koirala ji.
Hmm.
So then I saw that and I was like, oh my god, this is where I want to be.
Hmm.
So I always wanted to be an actor, and I used to do a lot of theater in school.
Huh.
I used to do a lot of nukkad nataks in Delhi, which are like a big phenomena in Delhi because a lot of colleges do that.
Hmm.
We do it on the streets. But I've never really been like too fond of stage theater unless and until it's with somebody who really knows the job, because
Hmm.
there is a tendency where I feel that not many people are breaking that fourth wall. I
Hmm.
feel that it doesn't seem realistic to me sometimes. So I have never really enjoyed it that much. But whenever I saw a movie, I just would get mesmerized and feel like, oh my god, these are all people. I would mimic them. I would wear clothes like them. I would walk out on the streets, and it could be any movie. I remember, there was this film called Lambu Dada, which had
Uh,
Kabir Bedi in it, which
uh-huh.
I don't know how many people would actually remember
I
today.
didn't know that.
So when I saw that film, when I saw that film, I actually literally forced it upon my family that everybody in the house will now call me Lambu Dada only. And I was probably what, 3 feet 5 inches.
I was just going to ask you your height at that time. Okay.
So I was always, the fascinated by this whole world, and I always wanted to be a part of it. And yeah, then I did Nukkad. Then I was just coming to Bombay directly. I used to model in Delhi,
Hmm.
and a friend of mine was applying for FTII. So
Okay.
I had no idea what FTII was. Such a big fool I was, of course. So I had no idea what FTII was, and he said that, bro, it's the biggest film school in India or arguably Asia.
Hmm.
So I said, really? Who all are there? So my first question was, who all are there? He's like, Nasiruddin Shah, Jaya Bachchan, Mithun Chakrabarti, Shatrughan Sinha, so many great actors are from there, but now they've stopped the acting course and they're restarting. They restarted in 2004. We can apply and all of that. So I just probably tagged along, filled the form, and went in for my process, like the admission process.
Hmm.
And thankfully, I got in. And then I realized that this is not just about glitz and glamour. There's a lot of hard work that goes
Hmm.
in.
Hmm.
So that I feel is a huge learning experience for me. And every actor who comes to me today and asks me, what should you do?
Hmm.
So I always advise them to take a formal training in acting, because
Hmm.
that can actually elevate your performance, your identity, I feel.
Hmm. You know, when you talk about FTII, there was a section of the film industry and a phase of the film industry where there were films coming out where people who were friends from a certain class in FTII, they used to go out and make films, whether it is Jaane Bhi Do Yaro, whether it is, films like Saath Saath. There has been that kind of cinema and that association, so people still remain, but that association never leaves them when it is about the industry. These are the beautiful stories of the industry. Have you had your set of
Absolutely.
friendships there?
Yeah, I still have my friends, and we obviously do a lot of acting exercises. Whenever we used to audition, thankfully that thing is reduced to a huge degree now. But whenever we used to audition, about till 2 years back or something, we would still meet every 2 days and audition, pick up scenes and perform in front of each other. So I have this close knit group of friends
Okay.
which have always been by my side, and I don't think so they're ever going to leave me because I won't let them. So I feel that yeah, that's immense support. And FTI has, it's like it's not just an institute; it's a
Hmm.
feeling altogether. Everybody who passes out from there kind of does watch out for each other, and it has benefited me a lot personally also. And yeah, I would. That's what I keep advising people. So if you can manage to be inside that campus, it's a great learning.
Okay. So, since both you and Shahid Kapoor are Delhi boys, take a sip. This is the last part of my segment. Don't finish your coffee. Take a sip if you guys bonded over Delhi ways.
That's that's my fifth cup for the day, and it's just 3 o'clock.
Okay. So tell me, have you bonded over Delhi a lot, considering both of you have roots in Delhi, both you and Shahid?
Yeah, but he's been a Bombay guy, I feel more. He
Yeah.
spent major part of his life in Bombay.
Hmm.
So he calls himself a Bombay guy only. He never says that मैं दिल्ली वाला हूँ. I think Shahrukh sir says that कि मैं अंदर से दिल्ली वाला हूँ. And yeah, I think if you're talking about the Delhi connection, I would personally relate more to Shahrukh sir than Shahid
Hmm.
Bhai. I have a different equation with him altogether. So we bond a lot on craft,
Hmm.
family values, what is the importance of your personal life over professional life, and professional life over personal life.
Hmm.
So these are the things that we spoke at in depth,
Hmm.
and that sort of helped us make that bond that you probably see or enjoy today on screen. And
Yeah.
everybody has been like throwing so many compliments at us, saying that the chemistry is great, it's the new Jai Veeru of the industry, it's bromance to another level. And
Hmm.
I feel that that connection has come out with Shahid Bhai because we used to bond on everything apart from this regional conversation. We used to bond a lot on dance. He's a great dancer. I remember back in the day, even the same hotel. This one day he was doing Nagada Nagada, and I was like, I always wanted to learn the steps from Nagada Nagada, and who's going to be better than you to teach me that?
Hmm.
So he's like, ah, बहुत simple है यार, I'll teach you. So he just taught me like how to do Nagada Nagada, and that's like I think one of the first few days that happened, and then it's just been flowing since then.
Wow. And I can't but help but ask that entire Titanic scene of yours in Farzi. I just wanted to know, who were you channeling, whether it was Leonardo or whether it was Kate?
A little bit of both, I'll say.
So looking
But
forward
yeah,
to, yeah, yeah, yeah.
see, that's what I'm saying. It's just the beauty of good writing. When
Hmm.
I first read that scene, and I was like, oh my god, I wish we could get the rights of Titanic's original song "Every Night in My Dreams" because I always wanted to be like that. And I was very young when I first saw Titanic,
Yeah.
in the theaters, and it was something else altogether. And I was like, oh my god, how do they even? And I remember I didn't even know a lot about filmmaking or camera or something like that. And I kept wondering after the film that how did they even manage to shoot this?
Yeah.
And I had no idea there are CGs, and
Yeah.
there's so much help available out there.
Yeah.
And I kept thinking, यार ये ठंडे पानी में इतनी देर कैसे बैठे होंगे? So that's the kind of believability cinema had, and I
Absolutely.
sort of bought everything that used to happen on screen. So Titanic wala scene is like my personal tribute. Obviously, it was there a part of the script, but the way I did it, it kind of came from within because I always wanted to do that, and I've
Okay.
actually done that very briefly.
Yeah.
And I don't know if we should be telecasting this or not, but I've done this. Whenever I go to a ship, I open my arms and I'm like, "ये Titanic वाला feel चाहिए यार."
ये ट्रू सिनेमा लवर की तरह बोला
I've
है.
done that on the jetty to mud.
Oh, wow.
When I first came to Bombay, and Delhi has no sea bodies, right? There is
Obviously,
no
yeah.
water bodies in around Delhi.
Yeah.
So वो chance बहुत कम मिलता था, probably when you're traveling or on vacation with family. But Bombay is like this is a regular thing there.
Hmm.
So when I first went to mud, I remember for my one of my initial shoots, and I was like, oh my god, this is so fun. We're on a ship. We're going to shoot. And this is so amazing. And there were like people there. There were like women with the baskets full of fish standing
Fish,
right
yeah.
next to me.
Yeah.
And still I did this. I was like, oh my god, this is Titanic in 3 minutes.
That's why I call you a true cinema lover. Before I let you go, since you mentioned that you like to mimic and all, I have caught on to that bit while you were narrating the Lambu Dada incident. The first acting sort of dialogue that you must have mimicked. I want you to do that for my viewers before I let you go, Bhuvan. Anything that you
Okay.
remember.
I remember watching Sholay
Hmm.
and doing that scene with Amitabh Bachchan ji, where he goes to, proposed Hema Malini ji's mother for Dharmendra's wedding, Dharmendra ji's wedding,
Yeah.
and he's like, कि रोज नहीं जाते मौसी जी, वो तो कभी कभी पी लेते हैं तो जुआ खेल लेते हैं. And I used to love that. And then the whole tanky scene where he gets on top of the water tank and says, Masuji, suicide.
Okay, this is fun.
Just
This
keep
is fun.
piecing and piecing and piecing.
That's so cool, Bhuvan. Thank you so much for doing this, and thank you so much for being a sport. You're lovely, and I loved your work. Keep continuing to do what you're doing. You're really going to excel. Thank you so much for this.
Thank you so much, Ria, for your time. I really enjoyed this
Thank
conversation,
you.
and I
Me
hope to see you
too.
soon in person someday.
Absolutely, absolutely. We must. Thank you. You take care.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye. Bye.